everyone. Welcome back to another episode of my podcast. I think this might be the fifth or sixth one that I've uploaded. Today I decided that I was going to talk about something that I actually learnt from, believe it or not, like a psychologist. I think I mentioned in my first episode that I've seen a bunch of psychologists in my life, and to be honest, I haven't really had that much learning from those experiences. Not trying to, in any way devalue the entire discipline of psychology. I think that a psychologist can be great. You just have to really find someone who's the right fit for you. And I sort of walked into certainly my first set of psychology sessions with no awareness of the even the concept that I should probably kind of take that first session as like an opportunity to feel, get a feel for whether or not this was the right counselor, this was the right psychologist for me, and be prepared to move on to someone else if it wasn't, So unfortunately, and even after, having gone through 8 sessions with that one psychologist who I learned, she tried to teach me CBT. I already knew most of it. It wasn't entirely unhelpful, but it wasn't exactly, it certainly wasn't miraculous or anything. And it wasn't a waste of time by any stretch of the imagination. It was a little bit of a waste of money. I didn't have a lot of money at the time. But psychologists aren't as expensive as psychiatrists, at least. So I sort of walked away from the whole, those 8 sessions feeling like it was pretty mediocre on the whole, helping me to resolve my issues front. But there is one lesson that I learned from a psychologist, and this was not in a private one-on-one psychology session. This was actually from a psychologist at a private psychiatric hospital in which I admitted myself to for 2 weeks after going through an exceptionally traumatic breakup. And that was an amazing. It's called Perth Clinic. And look, I can't speak for what it's like today. I can't speak for what it's like for anybody else, for that matter. But I had an amazing experience there. The quality of the therapy was top notch. The quality of the therapists was top notch. The food was unbelievable. They have a dedicated chef and a dedicated pastry chef that work at that place. It's basically like a 4-star hotel, but then every single day you just do therapy all day. And if you don't go to therapy, you have to go and do art or something else instead. You sort of, they won't let you stay there and just stay in your room for 2 weeks. So anyway, look, I found that the therapy there to be amazing, and the therapist in particular was outstanding. Anyway, he said something to us during one of his sessions that I have never forgotten and has resonated with me, that I have applied in my own life, or that I've certainly taken with me through my life, that I have also tried to suggest to other people, maybe to no effect. It can be hard. It can be hard to give people advice, especially when it's really, that advice is really suggesting that they change what they're doing, change their whole cognitive process, which is what this is. So anyway, I guess the name of this podcast is probably going to be something like, stop trying to get into other people's heads, because the backdrop to this whole lesson that taught by this psychologist was that another member of the group in which we were in, because there was about 12 of us that were having these group sessions, she was talking and telling her story and talking about her daughter in particular and saying about how her daughter hated her and she just didn't know why, and she was literally driving herself insane, neurotic, because she felt like her daughter hated her based on certain things, certain ways in which her daughter had treated her, certain things that her daughter had done, and things that her daughter had said. Her daughter had never told her that she hated her. Her daughter had never actually even said anything any words to that effect whatsoever. However, she had come to the conclusion that her daughter hated her, largely, I suspect, due to something called confirmation bias, which is a cognitive bias that I'll be discussing in a future video. However, in a nutshell, confirmation bias is basically a trick that our mind plays on us, which means that, it's like if you decide to buy a red car, for example, even before you've bought that car, you're going to start seeing red cars everywhere. And you would swear before you ever thought about buying a red car that there were very, very few red cars on the road. And all of a sudden, there are red cars left, right, and center. And that's just a silly example. But that in effect is sort of how confirmation bias works. It's like once you notice something, then your mind will, first of all, your senses will become more adept. Your senses will become more attuned to whatever it is that you're focusing on, so that you'll see it more, you'll hear it more, and if it's a cognitive thing, if it's something that you're thinking, then you will find reasons all around you to basically convince yourself that what might have started out as just a lone thought that occurred to you one day, like, I think my daughter hates me, and then in the next couple of months, weeks, months, years, maybe even, you start noticing things that she does or things that she doesn't do, for that matter. And rather than seeing them for what they are, you're seeing them through the lens of someone who is now starting to wonder if your daughter hates you. And as a result, you can come to these conclusions. And she was dead set. Like, we all, as soon as she said, like, my daughter hates me, like, everyone in the group, and and that's why, I mean, it was a really good group. The group therapy is really quite good if you've got a good therapist, because you can often see in other people things that you can't see in yourself, first of all. But secondly, just because the therapist says something, they don't always say it in a way that gets through to the person. So having other people in the room that can sort of share their own experiences, share and chime in with their own opinions on a subject matter can definitely help to get someone over the edge, I guess, of maybe realizing that their thinking might be a little bit skewed about something. So anyway, so she was talking about how her daughter hated her. And once we sort of got that part of the session, once we sort of tried to work with her on believing that maybe she was coming to she would jump to that conclusion prematurely, and that in fact it may just be that her daughter was 17 and was branching out on her own, trying to find her independence, trying to find herself, and so was making less time for her. And as a result of her mother's own admitted issues with alcohol, her daughter had some resentments there that she wasn't quite ready to bring up with her mum yet, or so we got all of that out. We got all of that stuff out on the table. And then she said, I just don't understand how she's thinking. I just can't figure out why, why she thinks the things she does, why she's making the choices she's making. I can't understand, why she would do these things. And the therapist just stopped everybody in the group because we were all getting rowdy. I frequently, this therapist, honestly, like, it got to the point where, because I was one of the more vocal members in that particular group, and it got to the point where with me, he wouldn't even look at me. He would just give me the hand. Oh, sorry. He would just give me the hand. Shut up, Belinda. but I knew, but it was fair enough. Look, it was fair enough because I can get overexcited and I can occupy too much of the discussion in a group setting like that, and you really want everybody in the group to have an opportunity to participate, and ideally you want everybody in the group to participate. That can be harder with some people than others, but certainly shutting me up was necessary often to allow some of the members of the group that were less comfortable speaking up in a group setting to say what they wanted to say. Anyway, he just told us all to stop talking and listen for a minute. And he said, I'm going to tell you something, and if you never take another piece of advice from me, that's okay, but take this one. Don't waste your time trying to figure out what other people are thinking. It is a pointless exercise. Chances are good they don't even know why it is that they're doing the things that they're doing. So how on earth you're ever going to be able to figure it out? Like, you could gather all of the evidence, you could you could do a real scientific study, like, data gathering and all this stuff, and you would come up with a guess, and that guess might be 60% probability of being correct, maybe. But at the end of the day, why someone is doing the things that they're doing is not really important for you when it comes to your mental health and your mental well-being. Observe what people do. If people are hurting you, I know it's very tempting to try and figure out why it is that they're doing those hurtful things, rather than just saying, hang on a minute, this relationship is toxic. I just need to back off from this relationship for a while and either let them come back to me when they're able to communicate in a healthy way, when they're able to treat me as an equal, when they're able to show me respect, or when I'm able to receive compliments and love and affection rather than perhaps only seeing the negative things and hearing the negative things that they say. I don't want to get too much into the whole toxic relationships thing today. There's a lot of content on Google about toxic relationships, and in fact there is one really good YouTuber who does all these videos on attachment styles and related sort of things. And she's really good and she nails it. I mean, she knows all about it. She's a whiz on it, and so she's got heaps of videos, including videos on toxic relationships and dealing with narcissistic, with people with narcissistic tendencies and all that sort of thing. So I'm not going to cover any of that stuff. I feel like that's better material, that material has been better covered elsewhere, and I'll give you those links if you're interested in checking out her YouTube channel, which you should, by the way, especially if you're unfamiliar with the psychological, or the I don't even know if it was a psychologist who came up with it, but it probably was, the attachment styles theory, because there's a lot to it. It's a good one, you know. I have real sort of mixed feelings about a lot of psychological theory, but attachment theory is definitely something that is real, and that is definitely something that is prominent in toxic relationships, and it's also, even if you're not in a relationship, achieving or overcoming your own issues with anxious attachment or avoidant attachment, it all usually boils down, it all usually comes back, goes back to your childhood. I said I wasn't going to talk about this subject, and now I'm talking about it, anyway. It's totally something that's worth exploring, but I won't go over material that I think has already been very well explored by someone else, but I will provide the links so that you can check that out if you're interested. So so getting back to the point, when it comes to other people and relationships, and it could be work relationships, it could be an intimate partner relationship, it could be a relationship with your children, it could be, it could be your boss, it could be anyone. If their behavior isn't sitting right with you, and you're feeling like they are not respecting you, that they are not treating you as an equal, that the things that they're doing are, in some way pushing against your own moral compass. So maybe they're a little bit racist, maybe they're a lot racist, and you happen to be one of those people like myself who's like very sensitive to racism. And when I say sensitive, I mean I hate it. I really hate all of those. I hate all discrimination. I really do. My worldview is that, as I think I've said before, that we are all equal, that we are all as valuable as one another, and that, humankind is just diverse. It's just diversity. Like with gender fluidity, it's just human diversity. Race, ethnicity, gender, religious affiliation, culture. These are all just elements of human diversity, and disability as well. There is a huge range of diverse. There is a very, very, there is a lot of diversity in the human race, and I embrace diversity. I embrace all of us as equals, and believe that we all have value. I think I just got totally sidetracked from what I was trying to say. However, I believe that I made the point, and hopefully you heard it. That's right, I was talking about relationships. So whoever it is that that you're interacting with, if you feel like in some way there's something off there, and they're not and the way that they are responding to you, that might be what they're saying, might be what they're doing, it might be the way they're looking at you, it might be non-verbal language. If it's making you feel uncomfortable in some way, And especially if it's making you feel less than, like, making you feel like they're putting you down, like, or devaluing you. Take appropriate action to protect yourself, but don't spend time trying to figure out why it is that they're doing that. It is literally a waste of your energy. It is a waste of your time, and you will never get there. That's the thing. You will never get there. I mean, you very well may be able to convince yourself that you figured it all out. A lot of recently, this whole narcissism thing has become like an epidemic, where every second person is a narcissist. Everyone who is in a relationship, who breaks up with someone, is calling their ex a narcissist. You're making a diagnosis with limited data based on only your own experiences, and essentially I think it's because it's born out of a human desire to protect ourselves, because we don't want to believe that we might just have been incompatible with that person, or we don't want to believe that there was our lack of boundaries that caused that person, or facilitated that person, or I should say, or enabled that person to take advantage of us. So instead we just conclude they're a narcissist, that's what they do, and now I've got my answer. But honestly, like, it doesn't help. It's not helpful. It might make you feel a little bit better, like, at the time. However, in the long run, all that you're doing by spending time ruminating on why other people say, do, think, behave the way they do is essentially only giving them more airspace in your own head than they probably deserve, and it's diverting your own cognitive space, your own cognition away from things that might actually be productive for your self-esteem and your self-worth and your and feeling better. Coming out of a really toxic relationship, this is why I made that video about forgiveness and about overcoming trauma, because I really truly believe that it is vital, if you want to be healthy and if you want to move forward and if you want to be a person who's content and whole, and who can be proud of the person that they are, and who can radiate the type of energy that you want to be radiating, especially if you want to find a healthy relationship, then you need to limit the amount of cognitive space and cognitive airtime that you devote to past relationships that have been problematic or toxic. Sometimes it's easier than others. Obviously, if it's your boss at work, that can be trickier to navigate. I'm gonna make a video about boundaries. Boundaries are one of those things that, like, everyone talks about. Very easy to understand, very hard to implement. However, they do work. Boundaries work. Boundaries actually work. That's what got me out of my domestic violence relationship. That's what got me, out of the spot that I was in, ultimately. And I'm much happier and healthier than I've been in years as a result. And it was because I finally managed to actually establish boundaries. And when I asserted those boundaries, when my ex pushed back and tried to cross them, I said, no. I told you, I explained to you that this is my boundary, and you pushed me, and so now I have no choice but to accept the fact that you don't respect my boundaries. You probably don't respect me. In fact, you definitely don't respect me. You never have. It was that was the catalyst that enabled me to go out, to get a VRO, to cut him out of my life. I literally blocked him, all of his family, anyone I knew who was associated with him, from my phone, because I knew at that point that there was no chance that he could be healthy for me, and I also wasn't obviously being healthy for him. I obviously wasn't healthy for him. I was feeding some power thing in his head. He very much was driven by the desire for power, the desire for dominance, and for years I totally fed that. And by putting up those boundaries and saying, and then at the first sign that he was pushing them, saying, you're disrespecting me, you're disrespecting my boundaries, I won't take it, I won't accept that. It was really easy when he did it the second time to just say, that's it. And that was after 5 years. So, and look, he's probably a narcissist. But I don't really care. But the thing is, I don't care. Like, honestly, I don't care. He's got a lot of problems. I wish him nothing but good things in his life. I hope that he gets his shit together, that he finds health, happiness, joy, and connection, and that he is able to be a good father to his son. But he is not healthy for me, and I need to be healthy, and that has to be my priority. So the next time that you're in that situation where someone does something wrong by you, or even if you're just watching something on TV, if you see something on the news or something, and you're trying to, you find yourself thinking, why the hell would they do that? As soon as you think that thought, just remind yourself, like, I'll bet you that they don't even know why they did that. I mean, really, like, oftentimes when people do, especially when people do pretty stupid things or very extreme things, you ask them why it was that they did it, and they'll tell you, I don't know, like, I mean, I think I was just reacting to like some, thing based on, often they'll like try and say that it was a, trauma response from their past or something, but that's just like them making up a like a justification that helps them to feel better about a choice that they made or for their behavior. Like, usually, more times than not, what they are thinking is essentially nothing. It's all just animal instincts. Like, you've heard people talk about like the reptilian brain, the amygdala, like this is what, that, so which is in full action, full activity when someone is being aggressive and violent, or when someone is being aggressive and violent towards you. The same region of your brain is activated, and it causes the flight, fight, or freeze response. You're not really thinking much at that time. So if someone does something and it seems just off, by all means ask them. If they're if it's a friend of yours, if it's someone that you care about and they do something that you think is just really off, by all means, like, with love and empathy, ask them, are you okay? Like, is there something going on for you? Like, I'm really concerned because that sort of behavior is atypical for you. But don't spend time on your own trying to psychoanalyze them. The best psychologist in the world wouldn't be able to. All right, that's enough. Okay, thank you. So just finally, some really amazing news came around yesterday, I believe it was. So Julian Assange, who I mentioned once before, he is currently, even as we speak, like, in the Supreme Court in the UK, it is his final appeal against his extradition to America. And the day before the first day of his trial, Senator Andrew Wilkie from the Australian federal government went up in front of Parliament and made a motion that Australia should go into bat for him, and it was agreed upon. The Prime Minister signed off on it, and Andrew Wilkie has flown to London to be there, to try and present the case that Australia wants their citizen back, and that we are for Assange. Which is just like, I mean, when I heard that, honestly, I never thought it would happen. I did not ever think it would happen. Like, it's too political. Australia has too many allegiances to the US. I didn't think in a million years that it would happen. I'm so enamored with Andrew Wilkie for doing that and for getting it through, and really, and it's actually like, that's now 3 times in my life that I can honestly say that I have felt incredibly proud to be an Australian. The first one was when we won the America's Cup back in 1982. The second one was when we passed the gay marriage referendum, and this is the third one. Like, bring them on, let them keep coming, please, 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 let there be more. Like, I'm so pleased. Look, who knows? It may have no effect. That is the very likely outcome. However, at least now we can say that we tried, and at least now Julian will know that his country cares about him and doesn't and thinks that what's happening to him is unjust and is in for the fight, So good on you, Andrew Wilkie. Super, super proud. Thanks to the everyone who voted on it, including Albanese. Like, really revolutionary in my view. Not quite as revolutionary as actually what Julian did, but like, in terms of like government shit, pretty revolutionary. Okay. All right, that's enough. All right. Thanks everyone. I hope you're all doing well, and got a few people watching my videos, which is pretty cool. Got 5 subscribers now at last count. Not bad. 5 videos, 5 subscribers. That's pretty good, I think, for a starting out. No one's commenting though, so please leave a comment if you watch my video. Please just leave. Please just drop your name. Tell me where you're from, at least, maybe, or I don't know. Like, tell me what you think. Like, am I boring you shitless, or like, are you enjoying my content? Like, I want to know because the only way that I can get better is if I get feedback. God, I wish I could stop saying I know so much. Maybe I'll get hypnotized. I'll try something like that. Bye everyone.